I sat in the front pew of St. John's Episcopal Church in downtown Denver, my hands tightly folded in my lap as the sunlight filtered through stained glass and painted colors on the polished mahogany casket before me. Inside it lay Evelyn Whitmore, my mother, the woman whose approval I had chased for most of my life like a dog chasing cars. I never caught it. And now, I never would. The priest's voice droned on about grace and legacy and eternal rest, but none of it felt real. None of it felt like it applied to her, to us. My grief didn't sit in my throat the way it was supposed to. It sat in my chest like a locked box, heavy, cold. Next to me, my sister Samantha sniffled delicately into a lace-trimmed handkerchief, leaning into her husband Ryan for comfort. She was dressed in flawless morning attire, her black dress sleek and cinched perfectly at the waist, blonde curls cascading like a shampoo commercial. She always knew how to command a room, even when the room was filled with sorrow. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I just watched, silently, a statue among mourners. Behind us, the rest of the Whitmore clan sat with varying degrees of stiffness. My Aunt Deborah met my eyes with a small, sad smile, sympathy or apology, I wasn't sure. But most avoided looking at me entirely. They knew. They all knew what was coming. The service ended with amazing grace and a low murmur of awkward condolences. We filed into the reception hall like we were marching towards something darker than grief, like guilt. I was pouring myself a glass of water, trying not to think too hard, when Mr. Calhoun, the family attorney, touched my shoulder. "Claire, can I speak with you privately for a moment?" he asked, voice low and professional. I followed him into a side room that smelled like fresh lilies and old paper. He pulled out a thick manila folder and adjusted his glasses with a nervous twitch. "I'm sorry, Claire," he began, flipping through the pages of my mother's will. "Your parents left everything to Samantha." My world didn't tilt. It cracked. "Everything?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level, as if this were some casual chat about accounting. He nodded. "Yes. The house in Boulder, your father's investment accounts, the trust, and even the vacation property in Estes Park." A strange kind of silence settled in the room, thick and electric. "They said you were self-sufficient," he added, almost apologetically, "that you wouldn't need support in the same way Samantha does, being focused on her family." Samantha. With her husband, her nannies, her matching SUVs, she had 3 homes. I had a 1-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and a radiator that sounded like it was coughing up a lung every winter. I let the news wash over me like cold rain. I didn't flinch. Years of being the strong one had trained me for this. "Thank you," I said quietly. As I turned to leave, I saw Samantha glide toward me, her expression a masterclass in polished sympathy. "I know this must be hard," she murmured, her hand reaching for mine. "But it makes sense, right? You've always been so independent." That word again. Independent. Their favorite excuse. Their favorite lie. I pulled my hand back gently. "You knew, didn't you?" I asked. She blinked, lips parting. They might have mentioned something, Claire. I didn't want to say anything before the service. I didn't want to upset you." Of course she didn't. Would have ruined her moment. I stared at her, and for a second, I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her how she could accept all of it, every penny, every piece of our parents' legacy, without shame, without hesitation. But instead, I smiled. "Thank you for your honesty," I said, standing up. "That's all I needed to know." Her brow creased. "Wait, you're not going to contest it?" I leaned in, my voice just a whisper between us. "I don't need their money, Sam." Her shoulders relaxed, misreading the tone. She thought I had surrendered. That was her first mistake. That night, I sat in the middle of my tiny Denver apartment with the window cracked open and the city murmuring outside. The room was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I drank a glass of cheap Cabernet as I stared at my laptop screen. The will, the numbers, the decisions, they left everything to Samantha. Of course they did. It was always her. When we were kids, she got a birthday party with a clown, pony rides, and a custom cake in the shape of a ballerina slipper. I got a box of store-brand crayons and a pat on the head. When she got a Lexus for her 16th birthday, I got a used bike. "You don't really go out much anyway," Mom had said. Every time I worked harder, they pushed the goalpost. Every time I asked for approval, I was told I didn't need it. Every time I did something big, they made it small. Samantha breezed through life on charm and privilege. I scraped by with student debt, 2 part-time jobs, and a resume built from scratch. But I made it. I became a senior analyst at one of the top financial firms in Denver. I had built my life brick by brick without their help. And still, I wasn't enough to deserve even a piece of their estate. Not a penny, not a memory. My phone buzzed. A message from Aunt Deborah. "Claire, I just heard. I'm so sorry. What they did, it's disgusting. You deserve better." Then a second message. "You should contest it. Don't let this go." I stared at the screen. No, I wasn't going to fight for what should have been freely given. I wasn't going to drag our family's name through court. But that didn't mean I was going to disappear. I had a better plan. Because if Samantha thought I was going to fade quietly into the background like always, she was about to learn who I had become. It had been a week since the funeral. A week since I sat in a room full of people dressed in black, pretending to mourn a woman who never truly saw me. A week since I was told, flatly, legally, that I was invisible, even in death. And a week since Samantha got exactly what she always expected. Everything. Now I was standing in front of our childhood home. Correction. Her home now. The one she inherited, the one she didn't need, and the one that was never meant for her alone. The house looked almost untouched, like time had skipped over it out of loyalty. The flower beds were pristine, the walkway swept clean, and the brass knocker on the front door shone like it had been polished that morning. It probably had. I hesitated only a moment before ringing the bell. The door opened with that familiar creak, and there she stood, Samantha Whitmore Decker, dressed in yoga pants and a cashmere pullover, like she was walking out of a lifestyle blog photo shoot. Her blonde curls were pinned effortlessly, her skin glowing with whatever luxury facial she'd treated herself to that week. "Claire," she said, blinking as if surprised. "I wasn't expecting you." I matched her blank tone. "I won't be long. Just came to pick up a few of Mom's personal letters. Maybe some keepsakes. Nothing valuable." She hesitated. It was almost imperceptible, but it was there, a flicker of something uncertain. Then she stepped aside. "Of course. Take whatever you need." The scent of lavender slapped me the second I walked inside. Mom's signature. Her perfume still clung to the walls, even in death. I stood in the foyer for a moment, just breathing. The pictures on the walls hadn't changed. There was Samantha at 6 in her ballet tutu, Samantha at graduation, Samantha at her wedding. Out of the dozens of frames, I was in maybe 2, and in both, I was blurred in the background like a ghost caught by accident. "This place hasn't changed," I said softly. Samantha smiled like it was a compliment. "I've done my best to keep it up." She drifted toward the kitchen. "I'll let you look around." I made my way toward Dad's old study. Growing up, that room was off limits. "Dad's fortress of solitude," Mom used to say with a smirk, though she never questioned why I wasn't allowed inside. Samantha? She used to sit on his lap in there. She knew all his hiding spots, all his secrets. But now the door creaked open without resistance. The room smelled like cedarwood and old ambition. Dust clung to the corners, but everything else looked frozen in time. His favorite leather chair, the same brass reading lamp, and his massive mahogany desk that I was never allowed to touch. I opened the drawers carefully. Pens, paperweights, old ledgers, memos from clients, birthday cards addressed to Samantha, none to me. Then I found it. A thick manila envelope labeled estate planning, original copy. My pulse spiked as I pulled out the will. My parents' original will. The real one. I read every line, making sure I wasn't imagining it. My name, Claire Whitmore, was there, listed alongside Samantha's. The estate shall be divided equally between our daughters, Claire and Samantha. My vision blurred, not from tears, but from white-hot disbelief. So I had been included. Once. I wasn't erased, until Samantha made sure I was. Didn't think you'd find that. I turned slowly. She was standing in the doorway, arms crossed. Her face was unreadable, but her voice was calm. Too calm. You knew I'd come here eventually, I said. Samantha stepped forward slowly, her expression still mask-like. I didn't think you'd dig through his desk. You changed it. She let out a long, slow breath. Mom and Dad wanted me to have everything, Claire. I just ensured their intentions were followed. Bullshit! My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The weight behind it was enough. They wanted both of us to be included. This, I held up the original will, was their decision. You took that away. She tilted her head. You don't need any of it. That's not the point. Of course it is. You're successful. You're independent. You're always fine, Claire. Me? I have responsibilities. You have 3 houses, a private chef, and a nanny for 2 kids who are in school 6 hours a day. She flinched, just slightly. You're lying to everyone, Sam, including yourself. She walked past me and sat down on the edge of Dad's old desk like it belonged to her now. It's over, Claire. What are you going to do? Go to court? Drag Mom and Dad's name through litigation? I haven't decided yet, she smirked. You won't. You're not like me. No, I said. I'm not a thief. Her face tightened for the first time. I turned and walked out without another word, but I didn't leave the house. Not yet. I sat in my car out front for a long time, the envelope clutched tightly in my hands. The original will felt like both a bomb and a lifeline. Samantha had manipulated our parents, maybe subtly, maybe expertly, but the result was the same: erasure. I thought about everything I'd lost. Not the money, not the property, the narrative. She'd rewritten it so completely that even in death, my parents were used as tools to reinforce her lie. No, I wouldn't let it end like this, but I also wouldn't play her game. Not in court, not in public. I needed a different route, a smarter one. That night, I opened my laptop. I didn't type a name into Google. I typed a phone number, a number I had memorized once, not because I needed to, but because for a long time I thought I'd have to forget it. Ryan Decker, Samantha's husband. He picked up on the 3rd ring. Claire? Hi, Ryan, I said, my voice even. Can we meet? Just us. No drama. There was silence on the other end for a long beat. All right. When and where? We met the next evening at the Iron Finch, a dimly lit bar tucked into a quiet corner of Cherry Creek. Ryan looked older, tired. His eyes were sunken, his jaw tighter. He had the look of a man slowly being smothered and pretending everything was fine. Claire, he said, voice cautious. I appreciate you meeting me. He nodded, took a sip of his whiskey. What's this about? I pulled the envelope from my bag and slid it across the table. He opened it, read, paused. His jaw twitched. Is this real? I nodded. It's the original will. He ran a hand over his mouth. Jesus Christ! You didn't know? I had a feeling, he admitted. But Samantha, she's always kept me out of that stuff. Said it was easier that way. Easier for her. He looked at me, long and quiet. Then he said, What do you want, Claire? Not the money, I said. He blinked. I want the truth. I want what she took from me, back. Not through court, not through drama, but I want her to feel it. I want her to understand what it feels like to be erased. Ryan stared down into his drink for a while. Then slowly, like he was coming up for air, he looked up and said, She has secrets. I'm listening. The night after I handed Ryan the original will, I barely slept. Not because I was afraid, but because for the first time in years, I felt alive. Every cell in my body vibrated with purpose, like I was finally walking towards something instead of running away from it. That paper, the one Samantha thought I'd never find, wasn't just a document. It was a crack in her carefully polished world, and I planned to make it shatter. But I wasn't going to do it with lawyers. That would have been her game. No, if Samantha had taught me anything, it was that true control didn't come from courtrooms. It came from perception, from how people saw you, or stopped seeing you. Samantha built her life on perception, the perfect wife, the doting mother, the successful philanthropist. She wore those roles like armor, and people adored her for it. They didn't see what was behind the curtain. They didn't want to. But I did, and I was going to show them all. Ryan texted me the next morning. "I found something. Meet me at the Iron Finch, noon." When I arrived, he was already there, sitting in the corner booth with a folder in his hands and a look on his face that said he hadn't slept either. "This," he said, sliding the folder across the table, "is our household budget. At least, what I've managed to scrape together." I opened it and saw spreadsheets, bank statements, transaction histories. It was a financial autopsy. "She has credit cards I never knew about," he said. "She refinanced the house without telling me. And this," he pointed to a $7,400 withdrawal. "This was a transfer to an account under the name D. Carlisle." I froze. "David Carlisle?" He nodded. "Recognize the name?" Oh, yes. I recognized it. David Carlisle, Samantha's photographer friend from Italy. I remembered him from a post she once shared years ago, captioned, "Inspiration comes from unexpected places." And at the time, I'd brushed it off as more of her poetic nonsense. Now it looked a lot more like adultery. "You think she's been cheating on you?" I asked, though we both knew the answer. "I don't think," Ryan said. "I know. I just didn't want to see it until now." He looked exhausted, not just tired, but hollow, like someone had slowly siphoned the life out of him, one pretty lie at a time. "I stayed," he added quietly, "because of the kids, because I thought she was trying. But now I know she was just covering tracks." I closed the folder and met his eyes. "So what do we do?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "You said you don't want the money. What do you want?" "I want people to see her for who she really is." I spent the next week digging. Social media was her shrine. Samantha curated every post like it was going into an exhibit called "The Life of Someone Better Than You." There were family photos by the fireplace, cropped candids at charity events, grainy black and whites of her kids sleeping, captioned with faux deep reflections about motherhood and legacy. But like most curated lives, it wasn't hard to find cracks. The trick was to stop looking at her posts and start looking at the people around her, her friends, her board members, the yoga moms she tagged but rarely replied to. Buried inside group photos were comments, in-jokes, and names she didn't expect anyone to click on. One of those names was David Carlisle, a lifestyle photographer based in LA. His profile was open, rookie mistake. I clicked through his posts, mostly shirtless mirror selfies, cappuccino shots, and moody sunset photos with captions like, "Searching for more." But then I found them, pictures of Samantha. Not posed ones, not brand ambassador nonsense. These were intimate. Behind the scenes, close-up shots of her face lit by candlelight. One of her standing in a hotel robe by a window. One of her asleep, hair tangled, lips parted. And then the worst one, a photo from 3 years ago. Samantha and David, half lit by the golden hour, their foreheads touching. The caption? "Some muses never leave your frame." I stared at it for a long time, not because I was shocked she'd cheat, but because she was stupid enough to think she could hide it forever. I took screenshots of everything, not just the photos, also the comments, the messages, the late-night emojis. It was a digital footprint made of lipstick and lies. And then I packaged it. The next day, I met Ryan again. "I found your proof," I said, sliding a thumb drive across the table. He plugged it into his laptop. His face didn't change as he clicked through the files, just a slow exhale. Like a man watching a ship sink he had spent years pretending wasn't on fire. "Do you want me to leak it?" I asked. He looked at me. "No," I raised a brow. "No?" "I want to do it myself," he said. "I want her to know it came from me." There was steel in his voice. Cold. Focused. The way a man speaks when he's decided the war is over and he's no longer interested in mercy. "Are you sure?" I asked. He nodded. "She's humiliated me in private for too long. It's time she gets humiliated in public." The fallout hit fast. Within 24 hours, Samantha's social media went dark. No new posts, comments disappearing. Her curated life began unraveling like a badly sewn hem. The women from her nonprofit board group chat leaked her affair screenshots. The Boulder Community Parenting Group banned her. The school where her kids went quietly pulled her off the fundraising committee. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't have to. All I did was sit back and watch as her kingdom collapsed, one caption at a time. And when the storm reached its peak, when she had no more followers left to impress or lie to, Samantha finally called me. "You vindictive little bitch," she spat the second I answered. "You planned this." "I told you I don't need the money," I replied calmly. "But you should have listened when I said I wasn't walking away." "You ruined my life." "No," I said. "You did. I just made sure people saw it." There was silence on the line, then a soft, eerie chuckle. "You think you've won," she said. "This isn't a game, Sam." "Of course it is," she snapped. "It always has been. And now I have nothing left to lose." "Good," I said, "because I'm not done." That night, I called Hannah, my lawyer. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's contest the will." "You sure?" "She altered a legal document," I said, "and now I have proof, testimony, and motive." There was a pause. Then Hannah said, "Let's take her down." 3 days after I gave Hannah the go-ahead to contest the will, things started moving fast, faster than even I expected. Court filings, notarized affidavits, digital forensics. Hannah was a machine. Every email from her team arrived like a perfectly loaded weapon, direct, detailed, and dangerous. "This isn't just a civil case," she said during our first strategy meeting. "If we can prove Samantha tampered with the will, that's a felony in Colorado, up to 3 years in prison." I blinked. "You're serious?" She leaned forward. "Claire, what your sister did wasn't just greedy, it was criminal. And now that we have the original will, the metadata from the document she submitted, and Ryan's testimony, it's game over. We're not just asking the court to reverse the distribution. We're showing them she committed fraud." For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the stack of legal printouts between us. "I don't want to destroy her," I said softly. Hannah tilted her head. "Then what do you want?" I looked her in the eye. "I want her to know she's not untouchable. I want the truth back. My truth." Samantha received the lawsuit on a Monday morning. Ryan was the one who told me. He still shared access to their home security app, and apparently Samantha had left the cameras up even after the divorce papers landed. She opened the door in full glam, hair done, nails done, gold robe, coffee mug in hand, Ryan said, barely containing a grin. The second she saw the envelope, she dropped the mug, shattered it on the porch. "Poetic," I muttered. Then she screamed, not like startled. I mean blood-curdling movie villain scream. The neighbor's dog freaked out. And just like that, my sister, the queen of controlled narratives, master of curated identity, was finally losing grip. She called me that afternoon. "You can't be serious," she spat, skipping any pretense of civility. "I'm very serious," I said, completely calm. "I have the original will. I have your edits. I have expert testimony. Want to see the subpoena list?" "You're doing this to punish me." "No," I said. "I'm doing this to undo the damage you did." "You won't win. You think judges care about sister drama? This is probate court, not an episode of Succession." "I'm not trying to win in court," I said. "I'm trying to win back the truth, and I think that's already happening." Click. The story hit the local news the following week. Not because I leaked it. No, I was far too strategic for that. But Boulder was a small city, and the Whitmore name still had enough weight for community bloggers to sniff out a scandal when it showed up in public records. Local heiress accused of estate fraud by estranged sister, charity board leader, faces legal, battle over altered will. Samantha's name was everywhere, and not in the way she liked. Within days, she was on leave from the Boulder Women's Giving Circle. Her kids' school distanced itself. Her Instagram, which once glowed with picture-perfect brunches and faux inspirational quotes, went private. And yet, the worst blow hadn't landed yet, because the court date was set, and she was going to have to stand in front of a judge and explain how her fingerprints ended up on a revised will that nobody else remembered signing. The hearing took place in a modest downtown courtroom, pale green walls, flickering fluorescent lights, no cameras, just 3 lawyers, a few witnesses, a stone-faced judge, and Samantha. She arrived late, wearing all black as if she were attending a funeral. I guess in a way, she was. My attorney opened with a simple question. Your Honor, how likely is it that 2 elderly individuals, both battling declining health, independently drafted a revised will with no legal witnesses, no paper trail, no family notice, and typed it on their daughter's laptop? Then came the exhibits. Original will, signed, dated, notarized. Modified will, metadata showing it was edited on Samantha's MacBook. Email Samantha sent to the family lawyer, dated after the original will was signed, asking about what language can be used to redirect assets. Ryan's sworn statement. Aunt Deborah's affidavit confirming the original intent. By the time we were halfway through the presentation, Samantha looked like she was melting from the inside out. Her hands trembled. Her mouth was drawn into a thin, bitter line. And then came the final blow. Hannah turned toward the judge and said, "We are not only requesting a reversal of the estate distribution, we are requesting that Ms. Samantha Whitmore be investigated for felony while tampering under Colorado state law." Silence. Then the judge spoke. "I'll review everything and render my decision within 30 days. The verdict arrived 2 weeks later. I was at work when the call came. "The court reinstated the original will," Hannah said simply. 50-50 split. Everything goes back to probate for redistribution, and Samantha has been referred to the DA's office for review. I didn't speak. I didn't scream. I just exhaled. The day I reclaimed the house, I didn't go alone. Ryan came with me, standing behind me as the sheriff posted the notice on the front door. Aunt Deborah waited nearby in her car, just in case things turned ugly. Samantha answered the door barefoot, pale and shaking. Her voice cracked the second she saw the envelope. "You can't do this," she said. "This is still my home." "Not anymore," I replied. "It never should have been." "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, almost pleading. "You're just going to throw me out like I'm nothing?" "I'm giving you exactly what you gave me," I said. And then I reached into the trunk of my car and pulled out a gift. One I had been saving for this very moment. A scratched-up, rusted, second-hand bicycle. The same kind my parents gave me on my 16th birthday, while Samantha got a Lexus with a bow on top. I set it gently on the porch and smiled. "You've always said I was independent," I said. "Time for you to learn what that really means." Then I turned, walked inside, and shut the door behind me. I was finally in the house, alone, whole, seen. But instead of feeling triumphant, I felt something else, something quieter, closure. I wandered through each room, not as a guest, not as a shadow, but as the rightful heir. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stood in the middle of the living room and whispered, "They finally see me." The for sale sign went up on the front lawn exactly 3 days after Samantha moved out. I stood at the top of the stairs, arms crossed, watching through the bay window as the realtor hammered the stake into the perfectly trimmed grass my father once measured to the inch, and my mother used to praise like it was some kind of suburban art form. Funny how something so ordinary could symbolize a century of emotional imbalance. I thought I'd feel something. Regret, vindication, anger. But all I felt was light, like the whole house had exhaled with me. Within 10 days, the offers rolled in. Families, young couples, a retired military vet with a golden retriever named Cooper. All of them loved the crown molding, the mountain view, the fireplace where Samantha once posed with Mom for the Christmas newsletter, while I was in the kitchen reheating lasagna. One couple stood out, David and Rachel, newly married, 2 months pregnant, first-time home buyers. They walked through the door holding hands and left teary-eyed. "We can see our life here," Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. That was all I needed to hear. I sold it to them below market value, not because I wanted to be generous, but because I wanted the house to finally belong to someone who believed in new beginnings. It was time to stop haunting it. I donated most of the money, not out of spite, not to make a point, but because I had built everything without my parents' help, without their money, without their acknowledgement. I didn't need to cash in on their guilt. Instead, I created the Whitmore Legacy Fund, a scholarship at my alma mater for first-generation college women pursuing finance. I wrote the dedication myself. In memory of those who were told they didn't need help, may you always know your worth, even when others don't. I sent a letter to the university, signed it with my full name, Claire Evelyn Whitmore, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding in a signature. With what I kept, I moved. Not far. Just into a modest third-floor apartment in Capitol Hill with creaky floors, a south-facing window, and a little sunroom I turned into a reading nook. I bought secondhand furniture on purpose. I wanted to build something new, from scratch, again. But this time, for me. No parents to impress, no sister to compete with, no past to erase, just me, just Claire. Just a week before I left the house for good, Aunt Deborah invited me over for dinner. Her kitchen still smelled like cornbread and vanilla candles. The same lace doilies rested under the salt and pepper shakers. We sat at her tiny round table, sipping red wine, nibbling on roasted chicken and green beans with too much garlic. She reached across the table and took my hand. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "I'm not sure it feels like it," I admitted. Deborah looked at me for a long moment. "Your parents didn't mean to hurt you, Claire," she said. "They just never knew how to love you the right way." I sighed. "They thought I didn't need it." "No, they thought you didn't need them." I raised an eyebrow. "You terrified them," she smiled. "Because you were everything they didn't understand. Self-made, self-assured, untamed. They didn't know how to parent that, so they gave all their effort to Samantha because she craved them. But you were already standing without their scaffolding." I felt the words settle inside me like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had spent all those years waiting for love from people who were just too afraid to admit I had outgrown their approval. And maybe that wasn't tragic. Maybe it was beautiful. I saw Samantha once more before I left town, at a local Safeway, in the clearance aisle. She was wearing a faded hoodie and jeans that didn't fit right, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. Her cart held instant noodles, formula, and discount shampoo. No assistance, no curated looks, just a woman exhausted by the consequences of her own decisions. I caught her eye. She froze. I expected bitterness or even hatred, but she just gave me a small nod. Not apology, not forgiveness, just recognition. I nodded back. Then I turned and walked away, and this time I didn't look over my shoulder. On the day I moved into my new apartment, I brought only what I could carry. No keepsakes, no furniture from the old house, not even the photos from my childhood. But I did bring one thing: the bicycle. The scratched-up, half-rusted, gift-wrapped in resentment bicycle my parents gave me for my 16th birthday. The one they called practical. While Samantha got a luxury car with a red bow, I wheeled it down the sidewalk, left it under a street lamp, and taped a note to the handlebars. To whoever needs a way forward, ride hard, love harder, forget nothing, forgive anyway. See, I never saw who took it, but I like to think it ended up in the hands of someone like me, someone who thought they'd never be enough. That night, I stood on the balcony of my new place. The city buzzed below, horns, laughter, a distant dog barking. I sipped tea, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, barefoot and unburdened, and I whispered something to the wind. They left me nothing, but I made something out of it. And that was everything.